Hello, everyone. We're here today with professional sports agent from JCK Sports Group, Mr. Dewey Hawkins. How you doing, Dewey?
Pretty good, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today because when we think about sports, I think a lot of people think about the athlete, commentators, they think about the coaches, but they don't think about the person behind the scenes that's really putting the puzzle together, and that's a sports agent like yourself. So just to kind of jump into it, can you maybe share a little bit about your background and how did you become the professional sports agent you are today?
Well, let's see. I'm 40 now. I have an interesting background. I live with no regrets. I went to 6 colleges in 5.5 years, got 2 degrees, graduated with honors. But while I was doing that, I went to school my freshman year to play basketball at Lewisburg College, a junior college, and soccer as well. And probably about a month into both seasons, I said, well, on the basketball team, I was the only white guy on the team. I was riding the bench. I was like, man, waking up at 4:30, eating nasty food. I say, nah, I'm single. I'm gonna go chase the girls, and I'm gonna figure out, you know, I want to stay in sports. So what do I want to do? I said, I want to work at ESPN. So I set my goals and my path toward ESPN, and I left Lewisburg and went to NC State and a community college at the same time before I went on to Wilmington, and then I went to ECU and Charlotte and graduated. But I was moving around so much because of TV. When I was 24, let's see, my junior year, I got an internship at WABC, 77 WABC, 1050 ESPN radio in New York City, which was the last summer that Mike and Mike had their radio show before they went on air on TV. And I basically floated around that office doing marketing stuff for Sean Hannity and Mike and Mike. So when I returned that fall to ECU to graduate, I grew up a big NC State and Duke basketball fan.
Okay.
And in this area, you pick one or two, and people always get mad at me. And I'm like, dude, NC State and Duke get along because we both share a common enemy. We hate Carolina.
I hate Carolina.
So don't get mad at me because my football team wins in NC State and my basketball team runs the show.
You can't go wrong. You can't
go wrong. But the crazy thing about it is when I got back from New York, when I applied for internship, it was a little easier to get the internship because you got a kid that went to New York City compared to the guys that are local. So Duke didn't take me. State didn't take me. I went to work for the Hills in the 2004-05 season. Covered football and basketball, and then it kind of took off from there. And I've worked for ESPN, Raycom Sports, the Golf Channel, NASCAR, the Speed Channel. I've done every professional event besides tennis.
Oh, wow.
I've done bull rodeo on CBS. I mean, it's
Right.
crazy. But I went. I wanted to be a sportscaster, so I had to change my voice. This was before Marty Smith came on the scene, which is a good buddy of mine, and he was the first one with a country voice that actually made it.
He's a Radford alum. That's where I'm from. I went to Radford myself. Yeah.
He's a good dude. And my junior year of college, my senior year of college, I was presented a possibility to be the weekend sports anchor, which is how you start off being a sportscaster. And they ran a background check, and unfortunately, a little bit of partying came up, and they said, you'll be an insurance liability. So we're just going to hire somebody's records a little cleaner. So it was like, now I got shut back down again. And I was like, so now what am I going to do? So I went as far as possible behind the scenes in production.
Okay.
And through production and along the way, I had to be, I was covering Panther games and NASCAR in Charlotte, and I had to, be a freelancer. So I worked at the Olive Garden waiting tables for like 5 years, and I got my life insurance license and worked in Lincoln Financial. I was always doing like 3 things so I could stay ready to leave and go. And through all of that, this will probably give you a kick. I had sold a life insurance policy to a guy in the tire business, and I'm talking big tires, mining.
Okay.
Um, and he was like, "Hey, I sold a life insurance policy to him. I walked away after an hour and a half. It made the most commission I ever made. It was like $5,000 check. I was like, this is nice. He's like, look, don't leave yet. He's like, I want to know if you want to sell tires. I said, dude, I used to hate wearing rubbers. Now you want to sell rubbers like that? And he was like, yeah, that right there, that personality. Come on, work with me. So the first month, man, I got like a $10,000 check. I was like, look, I'm going to sell tires.
Right.
So I'm trying to speed this up for you, you know who I am. So from the tires led to helping my boss. I said, look, dude, I'm really good at picking games and picking spreads. And he is like, what are you talking about? I said, I want a website. You remember that movie, Two for the Money, with Matthew McConaughey and Al Pacino?
I know the movie. I didn't watch it, though. I know the movie.
Dude, you got to watch the movie. Great.
Okay. It's the weekend, so I'll put that on the list.
Yeah, it's basically about a guy that people are calling in and buying his sports picks to cover the spread. So legally, it's a consulting fee. So mom and dad couldn't ride my butt so bad about, oh, you're going to go to jail. No, I'm not the bookie. I'm not taking the bets. We're
right.
Right. So I created a website called youbetbig.com, and I ran that for like 3 years and finishing top 5 every year. And, and then I got a job offer to go to Vegas to do it professionally.
Okay.
And my parents are like, you're still a little too wild. You go out there, you end up dying.
They're setting you up.
My mom's like, please don't go. So through all of that gets us to the agent thing, and I had to shut it down. Of course, you can't be in sports gambling, being in professional sports.
Right.
So I had to walk away from that game, and a former NC State basketball player that I knew, I started hanging out with 2 of them, and they said, man, Dewey, you'd be good at being an agent. I said, yeah, I applied to UCLA Law School. I'm planning to move to Cali and do that, because to learn about the agent business, everybody thinks you got to go to law school. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Like everything else. It's all
honestly, I thought that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about who you know. So he said, I know a guy that'd be interested in talking to you, and he ended up playing at NC State. Back when I was growing up, I saw him when I was like 10 years old. And his name's Jamie Knox, and he owns JCK Sports Group in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. So
Jamie interviewed me, and he said, look, I got 2 players I want you to go after. I don't know if you're a salesman, what you're going to do, what you know about the game, but let's see if you can do this. So I went after 2 guys, a guy from Rider University, Daniel Stewart, and a guy, R.J. Slauson, that played at South Carolina, and I ended up signing both of them. And then the ball just started rolling from there. But we can go more, time for you to talk. We can go more into detail about this agent business, and I can give a word of advice to those who think it's cool and I want to do it before they do it.
No, absolutely. I think we could take this conversation in any route. You have a lot of experience, a lot of good times that you could share. But no, definitely, I think you cleared up some things, right, that I would even had a misperception on, is that I thought you needed a law degree to be an agent. So that's something you cleared up. But I think for a lot of folks, it just kind of hits on it. What is a sports agent? When people hear that, what should they think of? And in your own words and how you view it, how's that role of a sports agent play out? Can you just kind of describe what it is and how you view it from your perspective?
Yep. Before we go into that, I'll tell you this. NFL, you do have to have a master's. It can be an underwater basket weaving. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, you just got to have a master's. And in basketball, Rich Paul, a couple years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but he took it to court, I think, that NBA agents didn't have to have a college education.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
And honestly, this is me saying, great guy, genius, millionaire, can't knock on Rich Paul. But anybody who ain't Rich Paul, that their boys out here balling, but their friend works at McDonald's or the mall, if I'm the parents, I'm not going to let him sign with this guy because he has no NBA contacts. But when you got a talent like LeBron James, this goes into the agent thing.
Right.
It's kind of like how I look at being an agent. You got kids like, I'm a really big Duke fan, and I got a lot of connects at Duke. But, you know, it's so hard to sign guys out of Duke because you got large agencies like CAA and XL, people like that are already been put a footstep when they've been in AAU. They've been after them for a long time. And they're the big names, and they got all the money, you know, and the glamour. But at the end of the day, if you got a Zion, LaMelo, Luca, those guys don't even need an agent, dude. They need a manager because these NBA teams, their agent ain't got to pick up the phone. And a lot of people don't see, like, for example, with QJ Peterson, 4-year, 20-point-a-game guy at Virginia Military Institute, took on ACC schools, bigger schools. Nobody's been able to stop him from scoring, and it doesn't matter his height or not. But when you look at the kids that come from like the Big South, the Southern Conference, stuff like that, there's a lot of good talent out there. Steph Curry, when he played at Davidson, if his dad wasn't who he was for the Hornets, then maybe it'd have been a little bit harder for him because he went to Davidson. But that kid, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite NCAA tournaments is when he played.
Absolutely. I agree.
Awesome. So being an agent, there's a lot to it, man. I got into it not for the money, because if I did, I'd be poor on the street if it was my only job. It was the connections, the fact that I wanted to be a pro basketball player.
Right.
And I like kids, and I like to help them out and help them achieve their dreams and goals. So it's kind of like, this is going into my 8th season. I kind of stopped recruiting 2 years ago to focus on my own company. There's hard times of being an agent. There's 2 instances that kind of stopped me in my tracks, because one was a hometown guy that I grew up with his family. They stayed at my house. We played ball together, and it was kind of like a lock that I was going to get him, and came down to the last thing, didn't get him. The other guy, I called him. I told his mom when he was a freshman, he was riding the bench. I approached her and said, "You'll laugh." I said, "Hey," I said, "has anybody talked to you?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I'm a sports agent like that." And I said, "Your son's going to play in the NBA one day." She's like, "Hey, man, my son is riding the bench. What did you see?" I said, "I'm telling you."
Yeah.
Not going to say any names, but that guy, it went all 4 years, man, and it came down to the end, and I didn't get him. And it was like a stab in the heart. And guess what? The kid's got a ring now in the 2nd year, and he played for the team that I predicted. How do I do that?
Okay.
So,
we'll talk offline. We'll talk offline about that.
Man, but the agent business, anybody who's wanting to be in it, it's very hard, because it's a lot of butt kissing, man. It's a lot of politics. It's cool to have the connections that I've made through the years. One of my favorite Duke players growing up is now my business partner, Ricky Price, and he has a training facility in Charlotte that I'm actually helping him try to raise money, capital to build his facility that he wants to go into. But through that connection, I go to Duke games and I hang out with Duke players. I signed my first Duke guy, an old guy up there from Virginia, Tyler Thornton, which is now a coach at Howard University. So there's perks to it, dude, but I haven't gotten rich. I've always been the guy that's got the high-end middle road schools, the UNC Asheville's, the Furmans. I did sign Butler guy, Roosevelt Jones, that was really good at Butler. Got him into the Canton Charge, and then he went NBA Summer League. And Antoine Mason, the son of Anthony Mason, I signed him right when his dad passed, and went through that whole experience with Antoine and his mom, and flew up there a couple times, stayed with him. I'm real close to my guys, and I like to build a different name for myself than a lot of people. These guys aren't dollar signs to me.
Right.
If they break their leg, like it's a business, and I have to make the most money for the guys that I represent. But at the end of the day, I'm building a relationship that these guys can always rely on me, that no matter if they break their leg, I'm still going to bust down the doors to when they do get healed, that they still can have an opportunity no matter where it's at. So it's a hard business, man. And it's just like TV was, once the women came on the scene and they're beautiful, and then you got retired players, they're soaking up all the TV spots. So like, unless your son unless you have a kid and you were in the NBA or NFL or something. It's going to be kind of hard for them to make it.
Competitive, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you touched on something that even from the past players I've spoken with, or even when I hear and see on the news and like the channels, but a lot of folks, especially a lot of athletes, you know, they often talk about the agents really looking out for themselves, but not for the player. So you kind of talked about building a relationship and kind of understanding that and letting them know it's not all about the money for your perspective. So can you kind of walk through that process? Like, what is your approach of, you know, building a relationship, but more importantly, sustaining that trust with them? So what can you kind of give some examples?
You know, there's a lot of rules in the agent business. You cannot, a lot of people say you can't contact the players can't talk to you or whatever. So basically, you have to find a way to get to the parents.
Okay.
And through that channel, you know, there's many channels out there. There's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you know, and you have to watch how you approach it. And, you know, the first thing that Jamie Knox told me when I came to work with him, he said, if I ever hear you offer a stick of bubble gum, you are done, because this is my profession. This is what pays my bills. We do not offer kids money, because you got to really think. He made a good point when you got to think about it. There's a lot of different agencies out there that do business their own way.
Right.
Not knocking them. And there's a lot of people in the past that we've heard other sports agents get in trouble and court cases going on by offering this and offering that. Say I was a big agency or a middle of the road guy and I wanted to offer a kid, okay, I'm gonna pay you $5,000 a month, and then another agent comes in and gonna pay him $10,000, and another one pays him whatever, okay, and in the end of it, because the kid can't sign a contract legally while he's in college, okay, or in high school. So why are they getting paid? This kid at the end, when it's time for him to turn pro, he cannot even sign with these guys. So now these guys done lost all these thousands of dollars for no reason, you know. And then if they get caught doing it, they go to jail. The player don't go to jail.
Right.
So it's not worth it. So it makes it very hard, because some of the people out there, they get away with it. But it's like every other business, dude. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But my whole journey, it's like I'd fly all over the country. I would go to schools. I would find a way to, you know, meet the coaches or whatever. I mean, when you were little, I was little, and I'd go to games and watch my favorite baseball players or basketball players. I'd always find a way to sneak into the back and get past the security.
Right.
So it's always been fun. And it's like, that's the fun part of it. And it's cool because I can look at my phone, and through like Antoine Mason, I never thought I would have LL Cool J's phone number.
That's pretty cool right there.
Yeah, dude. And I'm talking to LL like 3 summers ago, because he's Magic's neighbor. Okay. And I'm like, I said, LL, I need you to help me get Antoine a workout with the Lakers. You know, and LL's like, all right. And we talked for like 20 minutes. And then I went to summer league, and he actually hooked me up to go to one of these clubs and like get in, skip the line. And I'm like, this is awesome. You know, you know, I look at my phone. I got Brad Stevens' phone. It's a lot of cool stuff that I have these numbers and these connections. But I've also been the type of person that through all my years in TV that, you know, you work to make connections, but I've always been bad about, I want somebody to come to me and say, you do great work. We want you to do this. I've never called on somebody like, hey man, can you hook me up? But you know, it's kind of coming to the point now, the older I'm getting, why I've stepped back from recruiting is because I'm focusing on the guys that I have and building my company, because I'm getting older. I got to take care of my family. So it's kind of like now is the time that I reach out for somebody like QJ, you know, because the kid has proven himself time and time again. And that's the other thing, is the agent that you have to deal with, man. You get these kids opportunities, but then say they go overseas or they see their boy making more money than them and they're better than him. So then you got to hear that. Well, my boy's making this and making that. And I'm like, no, man, it's not like that. There's a path to get to the league. Even if you don't make it right out the gate, you can still get to the NBA in another way, man. You just got to ball out, and then you try to get into summer league. And in summer league, you ball out. Then you go to mini camp, and then you get invited to camp. And then it's not over if you don't get in right out the door, man.
Absolutely.
So.
No, I can definitely attest to that. I went to Radford. Example, the only NBA player we have from Radford is currently with the Celtics right now is Javante Green. For example, he played overseas for a few years. His path was not immediately going to the NBA, but he did a couple years, balled out, like you said, did summer league, and now he's with the Celtics and he's a rotation. So it's a different. Everyone has a different story, a different way of getting into it, right? So but I think the main thing is, like you said, it's about networking and just staying consistent and persistent what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, it's not hard getting in with, you know, I mean, it is hard getting in with a lot of these coaches because, they got to respect you and all you have is your name.
Mm,
So I just I've just tried to hustle very hard. I've gotten lucky to sign some guys that um, their dads and their families been respected in the basketball community,
right.
like Tyler Lewis. His dad has a big recruiting camp out of Statesville called Phenom, and
Right.
he does very great work. Or a bunch of high schoolers go, and the college coaches come in and watch them play, and it's a scouting camp. So
This might be something you can definitely clarify for me. Is it required for players to have an agent? And if not, like, what's the pros and cons? No.
nope, no, it's not required. You
So,
know,
for example, if I was a professional athlete, looking for an agent, considering not having one, what would you share with that individual, saying, "Hey, this is the benefits of probably why you wouldn't want one, but this is what I can do for you." What's the difference between that?
so the difference between that is it goes back to that example I said about somebody working at fast food or at the mall or something. Who do they know? Like the player doesn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So if it is a Zion, you know, people are going to come to him. But the only people that matter that are going to come to him are the NBA personnel. If somebody comes up to you and you're a baller off the street and you got all these scholarship opportunities, got these big D1 schools, and you're just a great player, then your coach. A lot of people forget this. The coaches, players sometimes don't respect their coach, and their coach at the end of the day, no matter how much bad you don't like them or you do like them, they're in the NCAA coaching. They have the connections to get you to
Hmm.
where you need to be. So it's kind of like it's a job, man. It's like I tell all these players, if your mind's not right, your game's not right. Because a lot of the guys who are pros, they've already proved themselves that they have the talent to be professional.
Right.
But if all of a sudden they going out at night, partying, getting on Tinder, chasing tenderonis, then
Tenderoni.
then their game the next morning, they're gonna look like trash. And then they're gonna call up their agent and they're gonna be like, man, why ain't I making more money the next year? I said, because you've been hanging out with tenderonis and playing Fortnite. Don't even come to me with that mess. So, a
Oh,
lot of it's crazy. I don't
yeah.
I wasn't an agent back in the days. I was born in the 80s, I've only done this for 8 years, but I don't know how it was before. But
Yeah.
there wasn't all this social media and stuff
You
like
you get
that.
in trouble a lot easier nowadays. Seems
Yeah,
like, right, with social
yeah,
media. Someone take a
so,
picture of you, you're
yeah.
done.
Oh yeah. So it's just like these players, if you say, well, how are you gonna be why should I pick you to be my agent? Be like, you want to see my Rolodex? You want to look at my phone? Do you know who this coach is? You know this NBA team? Don't you want to play in the NBA? Do you have these phone numbers? No.
Yeah.
All right, then. So how are you going to make this happen? Like, if you want to make money and put your money in stocks or whatever, have a financial advisor to set you up for retirement. You can't do it on your own because you don't know that industry. So it's kind of like just throwing darts at the wall.
Right.
So you got to be smart, and it's all about how they're raised too, man. So
Yeah.
sometimes I've had kids that don't come from like a great background, so
Hmm.
I like to take them under my wing and and look out for them, and hopefully between them two, me and them, we can get to the next level.
Right.
So I don't know, man. If I was a player, I definitely would consider having an agent because
Right.
they do all the work for you. Then all you have to do is focus. That's what's hard with these kids, man. They get on social media and they get sidetracked and they see these girls, they see their boys doing this and
Yeah.
all that. When their only job, when you have an agent, their job is to play basketball at the best of their ability and train.
Right.
After college, that's all they gotta focus on. Let the agent do all the other BS. Let him make the phone calls. Let him set up the workouts. That takes off a lot of stress of these players, but they're so worried about what everybody else is doing that they're missing their opportunity because, these basketball players is better than a running back time in the league, but basketball players 10-year life, so
Right.
LeBron's a different story. He's just, this man can play every position. I mean, I
Right.
get it, but it's just it's different for everybody. But an agent, I do suggest that players have an agent and find somebody that they feel comfortable with. Like when I
Absolutely.
talk to my guys, for some reason, I've still stayed up with the time. I'm not a grandpa yet, so I know how to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I've been
Yeah.
single up until 3 years ago, so I was just like them, So
Right.
we
Right.
we
Right.
gelled. I'd bring my players that I rep, and they'd stay at my apartment for the summer, and I would go to training with them. I would take the summer off from work, and I would go wake up with them and watch them train, and we'd go out on the weekends, and and we just work together. I feel
Right.
like that's the best way to be with these kids because they'll
Absolutely.
they'll leave, dude. They'll leave in a heartbeat. If somebody comes and throws a bag at them, you got to do something to keep them, and you got to
Right.
always let them know that you're about them and making their life better and talking to
Absolutely.
their family. And that's the hard thing about being an agent too. You start developing relationships with the family,
Right.
and you got your own job, man. I get pulled.
They're
So,
probably gonna be more challenging than the players themselves.
woo! But yeah, but at the end of the day, it's been fun. Like Antoine Mason's mom's like my second mom. So
Right.
QJ's family's basically my family. So it's
Absolutely.
it's been a fun little journey, man.
Yeah. Definitely something that I've picked up, and I'm in a business world. I do government consulting, and it's about relationships a lot, right? You need to have the skill sets, but it's about relationship. And the more I speak to folks like yourself and people in the sports business world, same thing. That's a consistent theme I hear about. Is it's not which it's like what you know, it's like who you know a lot of times, and more importantly, how do you sustain that? What's a day in the life of a sports agent? Is it a lot of meetings? How much time are you actually spending on the phone, connecting with the actual players? Like, what happens in the day in and day out in your world?
Um, Basically, how I do my thing. It might be different from everybody else. Somebody who is a full time sports agent and this is paying their bills
Right.
usually has a, a couple of guys in the NBA that
Mm-hmm.
they can do this full time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I put all my guys on a group text. We chat, we talk, we send texts. It's fun. It's fun times, but we motivate each other.
Right.
And if somebody has a great game, the other guy's like, yeah, man, we talk a lot of junk. And there's certain times, like I keep saying QJ, but there's certain times to approach the NBA personnel, especially it's very hard right now with COVID.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
you don't know if there's a summer league. G
Yeah.
League is not the G League. Basically, they have a season, but it's not
Yeah.
a season. You know,
Right. Right.
so it's kind of like you make these phone calls. You pick up the phone, like, hey, let me get QJ in for a workout or whatever. Dewey, we don't know what's next. So it's kind of like you don't want to rub these guys wrong.
Right.
It's like you got one opportunity, but you develop those relationships with all these NBA personnel that they know who you are, and you kind of give them their space and their time and respect them, and they know these players. That's why they have scouts. So it's kind of like the agent is just like double confirming what they're already doing, but you
Mm-hmm.
got to put a spin on it as to why my player is better than the next guy, just like
Absolutely.
anything else in business. Um, so yeah, my daily life is, it's that I sleep about 4 hours a day. Yeah, it's not good. uh, and that's because I have my trucking company and I have my players. At one
Right.
time, I was managing 15 players at one time, and it
Right.
was a lot. But at
Yeah.
that time, I was working from home, and it was basketball
Right.
24/7. I was all in, dude.
Right.
And then when those couple of instances I told you happened, and
Mhm.
I started seeing how much money I was spending flying around, meeting this person and that person,
Right.
and I like to win. I don't
Yeah.
like to lose.
Yeah.
like Ricky Bobby. If you ain't
Ricky
first, you
You're
last.
last.
so you know,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I like to be successful. So you bang your head so much against the wall and keep getting turned down and getting no's that, you know, I've never stopped. I've never quit. But sometimes as you get older, the clock's ticking, and the clock's ticking on these athletes too.
Yeah.
So I just kind of stepped back and looked at the roster that I have, and I locked in on pushing the guys that were the closest to, you know, pushing them where they are and
Right.
lifting them up into better leagues instead of keep recruiting and bringing on more players. Because I feel, you know, as an agent, is that's your prime business to bring strength in numbers, and more people equals more money. I look at it as I'd rather want quality, not quantity. I like to be personal with my guys. I don't want to sign a guy and be like a lot of agents do. They'll sign guys and they won't ever even talk to the player. They'll say, all right, here's your contract. This is where you're going. The player be like, this is how much I want to make. They'll get what they want to make. But then they place them in like, I'm not naming countries. This is bad against business. But they'll put them in countries that if this kid wants to play in the NBA, it's setting him backwards. He's going backwards.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's all about placement. If you place these kids in the right situation and you know their skill set, then you pretty much know they're going to go in this league and they're going to destroy. And now their salary is going up 2, 3, 4 times. And then boom, it's just like a resume. You can't work at Apple starting at the bottom. You know, you got to work your way up. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of like that, man. That's my life. I manage my trucks, drive them, and manage my players, and talk and text and talk to NBA personnel, overseas guys all the time via text message, phone, Instagram, phone, whatever, just to keep
Staying
the ball
engaged.
rolling.
Yeah. You a busy man, Dewey.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's tiring, but hopefully, eventually it'll all pay off, man. I mean, you know, everybody says in the agent game it only takes one, and you got to think about the large agencies. They got one player, that did it big, and that one player got, hey man, I'm rep by XYZ. You should come over here, see what they did for me, and then boom, 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 and that's all it takes. I mean, we got Chris Clemens, and everybody said, oh, Chris Clemens, he can't play in the NBA. He's too short. Well, between John Spencer and Jamie Knox, they put together their contacts and their work ethic, and he's on the Rockets. He's hurt right now, but he's in the NBA, and he did what he had to do. And so it is possible.
Right. Okay.
I get mad about the size thing, man. To me, if I'm a coach, I want the player who's going to put W's in the column. I don't care if they're 6 foot. If somebody's 6'6" or somebody's 5'8" and they can score on a guy who's 6'6",
that's the main. Can you
play? Get buckets for you every day. Give the kid a contract. So
that's the big reason why I have this Iverson jersey back here. You know,
that was the man, dude.
Iverson wasn't the biggest guy, but he had a big heart, and he balled out. He gave it his all. So I definitely hear you on that. I think the game has changed anyway, especially like the NBA. You know, back in the day, you had giants in there. Now you have, you know, the game's a little bit more open. It's not so much in the paint as much. It's more perimeter. So I think that's helped as well. For someone that's like getting into sports agent, what should they know? Like, what's the difference besides the players, the sport itself? Is there any difference between like the regulation or criteria of being an agent for football or baseball versus basketball?
Yeah, like I said, you got to have a master's to be an NFL agent. There's fees. They changed those a couple of years ago, all based on how many number of NBA players you have. So basically, if you ain't got any NBA players, there ain't no reason for you to be NBA certified. You can work with an agency, still be an agent, still talk to the teams, still send emails, still set up workouts. The only thing you can't do is talk money. Okay, you have to be licensed. So you have to pay, I think it's like $5,000 for 5 players a year. So you better have some players to be paying just that fee. So, or you get with an agency who already has somebody certified, and then if your player makes it the league, they go up underneath the guy who's certified. So
Right.
the difference is they both got tests. One requires more education.
Okay.
You need to have some business sense about you. You got to know business. I grew up in it, so this is
Right.
and my TV background really did it for me too.
Mhm.
I made a lot of connections in that, and I just have a way with, you can't be a shy guy and be a sports agent. You'll never
Yes.
sign anybody.
Yeah.
And you
That
can't.
doesn't go together. It just doesn't go
Nah,
together to me.
and you can't be cocky, and you can't
Yeah.
be. You got to have some confidence though, because I mean,
Right.
you're selling yourself. This is a big thing to me, man. Is if I'm a parent
Mhm.
and there's this agent, here comes Dewey. That's like, but I'm 40 now, so I was 33 when I started. So here comes this 33-year-old kid, got some Jordans on, because the whole scene of that is I was always taught to in TV, no matter where I'd go, to dress up in a suit.
Right.
You got one, your first impressions are everything. So I
Mhm.
get in this agent game. They're like, no, 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 do it. Don't be showing up in no suit. Sweatpants, a polo, some
Keep it
J's.
casual. Yeah.
Casual, man. You
Yeah.
got you got to take off the stress. Like, don't make it a business, but it is a business. So
Right.
a little comfortable profession here. So
Right.
when you sit there and you introduce yourself to families, it's kind of like when you're dating somebody when you're in high school and you got to go meet the parents. Like,
Right.
you got to put on your best looks and you got to
Mhm.
talk your game, BS here and there, and
Right.
that's what you do. And you meet these parents, and you just got to be genuine, dude.
Right.
Parents can read
Oh
you. If
yeah.
you're going to
Oh yeah.
trying to sell them a bunch of BS, then if I'm a parent, I'm like, man, get out of here, man.
Right. Right.
So
Has to be genuine. Yeah, it has to be
right,
genuine. Yeah.
and their time is very valuable for you to be
Mhm.
able to get their parent that their parents actually want to talk to you.
Right.
You already got Pat. You already on first base, bro. So now you got
Right.
to find your way to second, and then close it out at home and sign the
Mhm.
player at the end. So I put my whole heart into it. I sell parents on the fact that this isn't where I make my money. This is me actually caring about your son, and I tell them I understand. I am responsible
Yeah.
for your son's career and the money that he will make. And
Mhm.
it's very important. People don't think about
Yeah.
that. Like, it's a big responsibility,
Absolutely.
because I'm gonna sign with you, and then all of a sudden so my son's only making this. Oh, he could go work it tomorrow or whatever and make that. Why did we
Mhm.
sign with you? So it's a lot of responsibility,
Oh
man,
yeah.
on top of having your own life and either
Right.
being married or having a girlfriend and having your own family.
Mhm.
You got to be real personable with the parents. The parents is where it's at, and the kids who don't have parents, then they have somebody who's been looking out for them, and they got everybody and their brother coming after them. I
Mhm.
mean, I remember one time, and he's got parents, but I had to connect to go after John Morant, and I ended up talking to this AAU coach, and this one, and they were like, "Well, look, man, ain't no point in calling this one because he's already set, you know." And I'm like, "Well, I
Mhm.
appreciate you telling me straight up.
Yeah, straight
You
up.
saved me a lot of time."
A lot of
But
time and money. Yeah.
yeah, man. But I've always swung for the fence. Um,
Mhm.
we where I work, the guys that I work with, our agency have had a lot of players in the NBA, a lot of high level overseas teams,
Right.
and we all got a Rolodex, and we got a good name in the business, and
Mhm.
that's all that you can go off of. So if you have the player that has the talent, and you got an agency that's respected and respect the players,
Right.
then your player's going to get opportunity. It
Yep.
doesn't matter if you sign with the big guys, the guy down on the totem pole, but has the next LeBron. You
Mhm.
just got to show respect to everybody. It's a
Absolutely.
business like everything else. You got to kiss
Absolutely.
butt, man. All
Yeah.
part of it.
It's about building a relationship, but more importantly, I'm the same way. I understand the importance of it, but when I approach someone or try to build a relationship, it's coming genuine. If you're someone I don't want to be around, I'm not going to be around you. So I'm a very genuine person in that regards, and people do see that, like you said, because like as an agent, you are responsible for their career. So there's a lot of trust that needs to go into it. So I definitely hear you on that. Um, you talked about how you kind of got into the agency and you're in like the 8th season of it. So what's some short-term and some long-term goals that you have in mind as you move forward?
Short term is, I look at it like this, man. Um, I'm recruiting one kid this year. And just because I know him through a family friend,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I like the kid's game. Um,
Right.
and then I have one other kid that's one of the main reasons that I keep going. And I've known him since he's been in 6th grade, and he's a freshman at Virginia, and that's all I can say. And so I'm hoping that when it all comes down to it, that I'm going to get him.
Right.
That would be the final dagger.
Okay.
And and it's short term. Short term goal is I am dead locked in on QJ. Uh,
Yeah.
I am going to, when it's time, I am going to blow up every NBA team. I will probably come out of my own pocket and I will fly to these teams and do it old school like my dad did. And I will go knock on these doors. I will set these appointments. I'll go out to lunch or dinner. I probably spend a lot of money doing it,
Right.
but it takes one team.
Just
And
takes one. Right.
it takes one team to believe and see what I see. Every year, um, I've predicted players that are going to go to the league, and people say you're crazy. And
Right.
Quinn Cook was one of them. I said he will be in the NBA. Is he going to start? I don't know, but he'll be in the NBA. The
Right.
man got a ring, okay?
Got a
He's
ring.
in
Yeah.
the league. And I've had like 5 stories like that, man. And it's like I know talent.
Right. Right.
And it kind of comes from back in the day when I had the sports pick company.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to pick winners, and it's kind of like when I have a system where I crunch numbers, and I used to look at ESPN, like when college basketball season was going on in normal life, I would go to like the stat sheet. I would go to stat leaders in every category, and I'd always try to find somebody who had high rebounds and like a very good, like a 43% 3-point percentage and up. And I would start there and I'd follow them for like the first month, and then I'd like to go after these small schools,
Mm-hmm.
like these diamonds in the rough,
Right.
and then I'd go after them because I know a lot of people ain't going after
Mm-hmm.
them, and then they turn out to be great basketball players.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing is like, if QJ wasn't my player, it drives me crazy because I did a lot of this with Antoine Mason. If his father would have lived, he'd have he'd have been in the league. Uh, you know, he's
Yeah.
had a very hard time, and he's very talented. Um, and that took a lot of wind out of my sails
Yeah.
because I beat down $50 million for this kid, to the point where Jamie would get phone calls and they'd be like, "Look, Dewey's a great guy, but you've got to stop calling us about Mason. We know who he is. We'll get him in, whatever." But that's my job, man.
Right.
I'm gonna annoy the mess out of somebody until I get what I want, and I want
Right.
QJ Peterson in the damn league.
He
And
deserves to be. He
not,
deserves to be.
and he's a great player, and he's a great kid, and he's
Yeah.
engaged, and he has the talent. Nobody's ever been able to stop him since high school. 20 points a game, all like from college on, and he's still doing it. And each level he goes up, his game just keeps growing. So I'm like, why doesn't a kid like that deserve his opportunity? So I'm gonna try until we fail. I'm gonna give him as many opportunities as possible, because at the end of the day, it's not gonna be me who failed. This is on QJ. It's my job to run my mouth and get him an opportunity.
Right.
But that's my short term focus, and my
Right.
long term focus is me sitting courtside yelling
There you
about
go.
QJ dropping buckets on people. That's my long term goal.
I like
'Cause
that.
Dude, I know he's got it. And I got another kid, Jaron Lewis, that's in Italy. He's a 2nd-year pro.
Mhm.
He went to Abilene Christian and played against Kentucky. Had a real good game and picked him up. And great player. Another one to be able to watch. But this is his 2nd year, and QJ's in his 4th. So
Right.
all the guys that I represent, they understand. I caught a lot of grief about why is your Instagram like League QJ, or your Twitter? Why is it at League QJ? Why do you have I belong as a movement? What about all your other players? Well, all my other players know what I'm doing.
Right.
I've told them, and they all respect it, because we all know if one eats, we all eat.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when somebody's hot in a game, you feed them the ball.
Right. Right.
QJ's hot. It's time to strike. The iron is hot. So,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking long term. I'm thinking right now, man. I'm working with what
Absolutely.
I've got, and I'm working as hard as I can. I got to get the kid to the league.
Absolutely. No, shout out to QJ. Had opportunity. I'm sure people watched it. Had an opportunity to chat up with him. Great guy, like you said. So talented, and like you said, just need one chance. So we're rooting for him, and I can't wait to see that day where I watch TV and I see you on court side. I see QJ balling. I'm gonna say,
I'm gonna come to your office, and we're gonna put that Peterson jersey right next to that Iverson jersey.
it'll be right there. It'll be right there.
Yes, sir. Hey, look, you need to talk to your people in Washington because QJ might be a little bit of that might be a good spot for him. Be right down the road. His family can go watch him.
That's true. We'll make something
5-hour drive for me.
We'll make something happen.
Well, we're working on that.
I guess to close it out, I appreciate all the insight you shared. I've learned so much about not only you, about being in the sports agent and just seeing from that lens. I think it's very fascinating. But is there any final words, any comments, any advice you would like to pass along to anyone who's new to sports agent? I'll kind of open the floor up to you.
Really think about it before you go into. If you're going to be an agent, you better be single at the start because it's going to take a lot of time, or you better date or be married to somebody who's going to accept what this business entails, because I've had plenty of fusses because of the time that I don't have to give.
Yeah.
I'm running a company and I've got players that rely on me. And then you've got somebody else that you love that you got to take care of them too. So it's kind of like you got to find a balance. This life ain't for everybody. And you also got to have another job because it's not going to pay your bills. Now, if you get hired by a big agency and you know somebody, more power to you. Go take the job. I wish you the best. But it don't always work like that, man. So it's kind of like it's the same in TV. I picked two professions that is as hard as becoming a pro athlete. Going into TV and being on TV and being a star is just like trying to be a rapper, be a singer, a rapper or whatever. Same as trying to be a pro athlete, and you're watched with a magnifying glass. So, for the past 8 years of my life, whatever I do, I have to remember at the end of the day, I might have my own company, but I represent the name right here. I represent JCK Sports Group, and I can't hurt someone who gave me an opportunity, because if I make one mistake, he goes down, and he don't deserve that, because there's more of us in this agency that some of them, that is their well-being. So you just got to respect everything you do. Nothing in life is free. You can implement the saying I say, if your mind ain't right, your game's not right.
I like that a lot. Yeah. It goes in all facets of life.
Yes, exactly. And, you have your show, and I've got my little thing. I'm starting with Divide the Aisle, and I have a thing that I was going to do if I ever had my own agency, but I'm not going to. I have a saying, be a priority, not an option. And I think that walks for everything else in life too. Like everybody, we're all different skin tones. We all come from different backgrounds. But if you got a mouth, ears, eyes, legs, you can walk and talk, then find a way to sell ice to an Eskimo and make yourself better than the next guy, because that's what it's all about, dude. If you got a good personality and people like you, and if you want to be a sports agent, find a sports agent, kiss his butt, get his coffee, do whatever you got to do, and work your way up. That's how everything's done in life. So that's my final comments. I greatly appreciate you bringing me on here, because like you said, the behind the scenes guys never get interviewed. And I get interviewing, and I love it, brother.
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. It's always great to hear from the players, but I think for me, I want to know all the facets around the game and the business of it. So I think a lot of people, like you said, guys like yourself really doesn't get the opportunity to share that side. So I think it's important for everyone to share their story and to inspire others who want to follow that path. So thanks again so much.